all the time in my own congregation. Sit down. If you want to show your reverence for God, do it with your good deeds after the meeting. I have a little, a short, well, I hope it's a prayer.
It's good having you back, Rabbi.
Good to see you, Tom. Tomorrow night, Jewish people all over the world will be out celebrating the festival of Purim, or Purim, wherein we recall the events related in the book of Esther. Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioned it at the beginning of his address to Congress this morning. It's a fascinating holiday where people get dressed up in costumes, and we remember the heroine of the biblical book and how she had to pretend to be something other than she was so that her people could survive. In some ways, it's sort of like the anti-Halloween. Instead of demanding treats, we give them to our friends as well as gifts to the poor. But there was a massive debate around the beginning of the first millennium as to whether this book of Esther should be included in the Hebrew scriptures at all. After all, in the original Hebrew version, there is no mention of prayer or of the land of Israel, or even a single mention of God by any of the names that we call him. So by what standard can we call this a religious text? The story fits into an old joke that we tell about the definition of Jewish holidays. They tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. But in the book of Esther, it all seemingly happens by the luck of the draw, which is what the name of the holiday Purim actually means. To the faithful, the book is about how help and hope can come from the least likely sources and how sometimes an invisible hand seems to steer events. My prayer and my hope is that each of us be aware of the subtle and varied ways our lives are steered, to be aware of the almost invisible signs that a higher power is involved in our decisions and actually cares what we do. As this body, the City Council, makes its decisions, I encourage each of you to take into account that perhaps there is a force that we cannot see that cares that you are doing the best for your constituents, and that someone is watching, even if that someone is not so obvious. Sometimes just approaching the difficult tasks that await you with this attitude can turn even the most mundane and secular decisions into an avenue of praise and doing God's work on earth. May it be God's will, and let us all say amen.
Amen. Thank you. Well, it's nice. We got an award there. I want to thank the Human Relations Commission and for those kind words. And he talked about this infrastructure, not just the streets and sidewalks, but this, what we really call the social infrastructure. And that is, I believe, that is held together by kindness. That really serves as the mortar that holds it all together. And there's acts of kindness going on in our city every day, many of them by our police department, many by all departments, but tonight we're going to talk about some acts of kindness from our police department, and we call it Above and Beyond. If I could call it our good Chief Raul Casada here, who's going to tell a little story about Officer Angelica Mejia and Herman Alvarez, about going above and beyond and acts of kindness in our community. And are you okay? Okay. All right. Good having you here. Chief?
Good evening. Just want to share a little story of why we're recognizing these two outstanding officers here. During the late evening hours of February 2nd of this year, Officer Angelica Mejia and Officer Herman Alvarez were dispatched to check the welfare of a 90-year-old woman living in a home with numerous other subjects. Shortly after arriving, Officer Mejia learned that the elderly lady was named Ms. Garcia, and she rented a room at the house. Ms. Garcia was not related to nor close friends with any of the other tenants. In addition, Ms. Garcia said she did not have any children or relatives who could respond to assist her. Ms. Garcia's room was dirty and unkempt with trash strewn about the floor. She had a small refrigerator inside her room, which contained a limited amount of food. Ms. Garcia said she had been eating bananas for the past several days since this was the only food that was available to her. Although elderly and frail, Officer Mejia said Ms. Garcia was feisty, determined, and set in her ways. During her visit, Officer Mejia noticed one of the stove burners was on. When asked about this, Ms. Garcia said she had planned to make some hot cereal and had forgotten to turn off the burner. Realizing Ms. Garcia was in need, Officer Mejia made her a bowl of hot cereal. As soon as the pot was removed from the burner, Ms. Garcia began to eat directly from it without letting this hot cereal cool. It was obvious to Officer Mejia that Ms. Garcia was extremely hungry and probably had not eaten that day. Determined to provide some assistance, Officer Mejia and Officer Alvarez cleaned Ms. Garcia's room, resulting in the collection of 3 trash bags. In addition, these officers accumulated and washed all of the dirty dishes and glasses within Ms. Garcia's room. During this time, the officers collected 4 bags of dirty clothing. Even the clothes Ms. Garcia was wearing appeared to be dirty and looked as if they had not been washed in months. While Officer Mejia helped Ms. Garcia change into clean clothes, Officer Alvarez arranged for her dirty laundry to be cleaned. The officers transported the dirty clothing into the police station, our detention facility, where our staff had assisted with the cleaning, drying, and folding of Ms. Garcia's garments. Hours later, Officer Mejia delivered the freshly laundered clothing to a very appreciative Ms. Garcia. The actions of these officers are examples that many of our police officers and our professional staff routinely perform without fanfare or recognition. Officer Mejia and Alvarez are commended for going above and beyond their normal call of duty. The care and compassion they showed to an elderly woman who was in need of some tender, loving care makes us all proud. The Anaheim Police Department and the citizens of Anaheim are extremely lucky to have these officers protecting and serving them. Thank you very much for your work.
And thank you, Chief, for sharing that with us, because that's the type of story that would normally just go undetected. And it is above and beyond. There's nowhere in the job description that says anything like that, but something in your heart, kindness to an elderly woman, prompt you to do such a kind thing. So very proud, and this entire City Council is very proud. Entire City of Anaheim is very proud of can't seem like a small act of kindness, but I can tell you it wasn't a small act to Ms. Garcia that day. So, Officer Mejia, on behalf of the entire City Council, I'd like to present you with this proclamation, and thank you for your service to our city. And Officer Alvarez, also on behalf of the entire City Council and the people of Anaheim, I want to thank you for your service to our city and for the kindness you've shown that day to Ms. Garcia. Thank you so much. Speaker brought up a good point. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is R. Joshua Collins, the founder of the Facebook group Homeless Advocates for Christ. And recently, Terry Lowe and officers and some others and I had a meeting regarding the homeless. And they stated that basically if the homeless went to jail, they would get some kind of treatment. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. A friend of ours that's homeless has a mental illness, and we all kind of recognize that. Went to jail, and then he was released. He didn't get any treatment, and now he's back in jail again because he went to an area where he was basically told not to go. So I'm just asking that maybe if we could get another meeting with Terry Lowe and the officers, because is there real help, or is it just lies what they're saying? And what I see here is a lie. And I'd like to hopefully make something happen here where we can really get help to these people. I've been doing a lot of research regarding police, politicians, and professors that are talking about issues with the mentally ill and the homeless. And one of the things that the police said was that they don't have enough mental health centers, and the cost is going to the jails to take care of the mentally ill instead of mental health centers. And it's like a revolving door. That's kind of what happened with this guy that I'm talking about. And the politician basically, he was saying there should be treatment before tragedy. A lot of times they're waiting for the tragedy to happen instead of working on a treatment before. And the professor is basically saying that there's someone has a lack of a capacity to judge for themselves, right? They don't even know they have a problem, and that it's in the best interest of that person, those two things, that we should get that person treatment. It's basically involuntary treatment. And then versus what we're doing now, which is that this person is they're waiting to see if this person is a danger to themselves or to society. Okay, and that's kind of what the system that the police are working on now. But what happens is this situation we have with the criminalization of mental ill people and the revolving door thing, where they just go to jail, they come out of jail, and they go back to jail, and nothing happens. There's no kind of treatment or help for them. So I'm just requesting that maybe we could have a meeting with Terry Lowe and discuss all this stuff. I know there's some officers out there that are still doing good things and helping people, and that's great. But then there's other officers that are like, well, that's not my job. You know, like Officer Hampton and others like that I've tried to talk to. And there's some that don't have that kind of above and beyond mentality, like the officers that we saw earlier today. And hopefully we can instill that kind of mentality of the above and beyond into all the officers and kind of go outside of our job description because, this society, we have to go above and beyond. If we really want to become a city of kindness and to do the right thing, sometimes we have to do that. So, if anyone would like to help out there, my Facebook group, Homeless Advocates for Christ, I'd like to hear from you. And hopefully we can fulfill Proverbs 31:8-9, which says to defend the cause of the poor and the needy and also to speak up for those that can't speak up for themselves. So obviously a lot of times they can't do that. And I'd love to hear anything you guys have to say, or if we get that meeting going again with Terry Lowe, because I believe he would be open to another meeting from what I understand. So can we make that happen?
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Yeah, Terry Lowe is sitting in the back. He is always open for to meet with people from with citizens of Anaheim. As you know, this is a complicated issue, and I would suggest that if you mentioned that they were lying to you, I would suggest that most likely there are so many different factors in this situation that I seriously doubt if it was any was not a lie. I would not think it's a lie. Just things don't work out the way that we plan, or things like that. So a lie means there's intent to deceive, and I know that's not the case. So
maybe some of them aren't intending. I don't know if they. All I know is they said one thing and something else happened.
Yes,
and so I like to see that their word would be true.
Yeah, and that could happen as you know in this world, especially dealing with the homeless issue where so many things are fluid. So Terry Lowe is sitting in the back, and I know he would love to meet with you.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's nice to hear about these officers. We need a lot more like them. But first of all, I want to say that we actually need an emergency safe zone for the homeless. While we wait for the shelters, we need a safe zones for the elderly women and the women with kids, and a separate one for the men. Now, the Armory in Fullerton, I believe, is closing soon. The homeless citizens of our city, not only have they lost everything, but now they're kind of afraid of some officers. I'm not there all the time. I know there's good officers out there, but there's always some few bad apples. But anyways, the whole thing with the police is they're there to protect and serve. And it's sad to think that the homeless now feel afraid when they have to be afraid of the criminals. And that's what this emergency shelters right now. If we could have a dog park, we could have a shelter, those safe zones, because not only they're going to corners where there's criminals out there, and the officers need to see the difference between a criminal and a homeless person, because they're veterans, they're elderly people, and there's some drug addicts and alcoholics out there, but they're not criminals. Even though they need help, especially the mentally ill. And there have been so many killings, especially just yesterday in L.A. There's a big protest right now. Before the incident, we need to actually expedite that help that they need, especially those homeless women out there that, for some reason there's no place for them, but I talked to them and they're so afraid now. And when we put those in place, at least we could separate them from the criminals, because we're not going to put criminals with them, but we're going to monitor them in those safe zones, okay? And that's where they can't get their stuff taken away from them, because when they're out there, sometimes they need to use the restroom and they have to leave their stuff there. And some of them, they carry more than they should. But it's just, I'm glad that Terry's here so we could talk to him, because, we got so much to say and so many solutions, good solutions out there with San Antonio and Utah.
Mr. Noble, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir, and thank you for advocating for the homeless, and appreciate your acknowledgement of the work of Officer Mejia and Alvarez. That is, I suggest that is actually more the norm of our police department, and but the job is a difficult one, and not all people are homeless. Of course, there's no crime in being homeless, but if people are committing crimes, then the officer's job is to enforce the law, and they have to do that too. And I know you're not disagreeing with that. It's
no, I mean, but there's got to be a difference where they could tell, and then sometimes it's so hard to tell because they're mixed with the wrong crowds, and they get sometimes abused by those people that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that
I can tell you they're working on it, and they're making great progress in the whole way that the police department is dealing with the homeless situation. Also, I go on, but also the way they deal with the prostitution situation in a very humane way, and I'm very proud of them.
We don't want to see an incident like L.A.
Right.
And everybody's scared about that because, it could happen anywhere.
Okay, first of all, that tax being proposed by Chris Murray has one purpose, and that is to tie the hands of future councils from putting a admission tax on Disneyland. And hopefully in the near future we will have fair council that is not controlled by Disneyland. I am Charlie, spokesperson for Anaheim Home. There are some people in Anaheim that do not know the difference between humans and animals. Unfortunately, some of those people who do not know the difference between humans and animals are currently Anaheim City Council members. Over a year ago, through the actions of the Disney whore, Chris Murray, Anaheim became the only city in Orange County to criminalize the homeless by making laws against homeless people sleeping in public, and by having their shopping cart of possessions, sleeping bags to keep warm at night, subject to confiscation by the Anaheim police. The Anaheim City Council is stopping the homeless from being able to sleep at night at secluded areas of Anaheim La Palma Park and other Anaheim parks, where the homeless causes few problems for normal Anaheim residents. However, some Anaheim residents, like Chris Murray and Lucille Kring, they do not know the difference between humans and animals. Murray and Kring, in order to make the homeless of Anaheim suffer more than they are already, have converted the few sleeping areas that the homeless now have into dog parks. On Saturday, March the 7th, Murray and Kring will be opening a new La Palma dog park, where the homeless of Anaheim will have the choice to sleep with dog poop or not at all. To Murray and Kring and many abnormal residents of Anaheim, animals are more important than humans. Some of these abnormal people are raising money for an animal statue while the homeless of Anaheim are suffering from the cold and rain at night. There's one thing that is well known in societies. What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. It is a certainty that some of those who bring their animals to the new Palma Dog Park will have their children or grandchildren someday be homeless and will be looking for a place to sleep. And the Disney puppet, Lucille Crane, not having any children, has nothing to worry about. Thank you for your time.